Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to Birds 365, your daily deep dive into the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm Zander, Krause, your host, joined by my co-host, John McMullen, the number one Eagles beat reporter in town, as we bring you the latest news, insights, and everything you need to know to stay connected to the Birds. Johnny Mac, it's a big trading day in the NFL today as we woke up to trade news. The Kansas City Chiefs sent a conditional fourth for DeAndre Hopkins. I know that's not Eagles news, but many are asking whether Howie makes a move or anything like that. So we're going to get into that this morning. John, before we do that, how you doing this Wednesday morning, brother?
Doing well. On to Cincinnati Wednesday, big practice day, everything happening down there. Nick Sirianni will talk, Jalen Hurts will talk, locker room, practice, biggest day of the week for prep standpoint. But yeah, you start with DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs. That's going to set off bells because such a big name player, 5-time All-Pro, 32 years old though.
I mean, definitely on the other side of his prime. That's for
yeah.
sure.
But when you see that big name, people get really excited about it. And he still can play at over 1,000 yards last year. But they needed a receiver. I mean, Rasheed Rice is gone for the season. They lost another receiver, so they were really up against it at that particular position. And they're in a obviously as the reigning 2-time Super Bowl champions, going for 3. They're in a position to take a chance on an older player that may be able to plug and play. So again, I always talk about fits. If you're the Carolina Panthers, you don't want DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
If you're the Tennessee Titans, you don't want DeAndre Hopkins.
If you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you probably don't want DeAndre Hopkins.
No. And that's what I was getting to. So I hope nobody's out there ruining the day. Obviously the traffic wouldn't be here and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that closes the book quickly on DeAndre Hopkins. But yeah, from the Eagles' perspective, I mean, Howie's Howie. He likes to do stuff. He likes to do stuff just to do stuff. I mean, you see the practice squad moves every week. Constant churn at the back end of the practice squad. He likes to make moves. Will they be substantive? History says probably not. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if he gets, it's interesting. Linebacker would have been one of the obvious ones, but now you're coming off a week, and that's where you have to be honest with yourself about being a GM. Important part of Wednesday as well, I should have mentioned, we'll get the first practice status report, and we'll get to see where Zach Mullen is, if the injury is some kind of significant or not. Maybe that shifts things a little bit, but Nakobe Dean wasn't playing well going into that Giants game, and all of a sudden he played well. Is that fool's gold? Is that real? You'll probably get a better indication this week. But the Eagles' thought process, that's where I say you have to be honest with yourself.
Right.
Do you need a linebacker? They should know.
Right.
Or is there a possibility of this being real, of him turning the corner? And that's always very difficult to do, especially coming off a high like the Eagles are. But, backup tight end is another position. People talk a lot about edge rusher because of the struggles of Bryce Huff, but, because of the money they spent on him, and now all of a sudden they're getting home over the past 2 weeks. Again, is that fool's goal or not? So I mean, the positions are pretty obvious where in general they would need some help in wide receiver. They already made their move at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Hasn't worked out yet. Doesn't mean it can't, but they already made their move at wide receiver.
Yeah, the thing I'll say about the Chiefs trade for DeAndre Hopkins is he's going to the Chiefs. So there's actually a chance that DeAndre makes an impact when your quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, who's taking guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster and making them play well. So I actually like that trade for the Chiefs and for that particular player just because of where he's going with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So that's a good trade from that front. You said how he, likes to shake and bake, and part of me wonders if one of these players out there, John. I mean, and I know it seems far fetched, and you can shoot it down if you believe it's worth being shot down. But maybe Howie looks at this and says, "Boy, this NFC is wide open, man. If we can improve this or improve this, maybe it's worth giving up a first round pick. If a guy, let's just say, maybe Myles Garrett is available or Max Crosby. I'm not saying they are, but if something like that became available, do you think Howie would be a player for a guy like that?"
Well, in Myles Garrett's category, I think, if he became available and, but you're going to have to give up more than the first round pick.
Yeah, you have to give up a lot. I
So
just wonder, man. I mean, you look at the Browns and the Vegas outlook right now. They both need a quarterback. They're basically both in la la land in terms of NFL world. They are not ready to compete at all. So maybe they're thinking about stacking picks, and how we would potentially make a move for one of them.
yeah, I don't. I don't think the Browns would do that. I mean, you have to remember who the Browns GM is.
Yeah, Andrew Berry. Yep.
Andrew Berry. So, one, I think it's tremendously unlikely. When things like that happen, it tends to be the unhappiness of the player. I haven't gotten that sense. I haven't seen anything about that with Myles Garrett. I'm sure he's not thrilled with losing, but I haven't seen any overt signs of, all right, I want out of this nonsense, and he's going to force his way out. And then if a player gets to that standpoint, then it's open season, and then it becomes an arms race. Who else is trying to get him? And as you mentioned, the NFC is wide open. To me, that would make the most sense for Detroit for obvious reasons.
Yeah, right.
And they're not although they've been very smart and very good over the past 3 years about, they don't have the long history of making good decisions, stacking good decisions. And, they might be willing to give up a bunch of picks to make a run at the Super Bowl, which they've never obviously came so close, but weren't able to do it last year. So there might be some more desperation on that standpoint. But if somebody like Myles Garrett or even Max Crosby is on the market, there's going to be a boatload of teams going after him, and that's going to raise the price even more. But with Garrett specifically, I know how much this organization thinks of Myles Garrett. I mean, if you can get a player like that, all normal way, it's sort of that was the Saquon. We're all talking, well, they don't value running backs. They don't, except for the scant few. Christian McCaffrey back in the day in the draft. Bijan Robinson, they would have drafted, had he fallen later into the round, they would have at least made a chance to go up and get him. Weren't going to draft him that high, but and Saquon. So, there's exceptions to the rules, and Myles Garrett's the exception to every rule, basically. But yeah, I'd be shocked if
I'd be shocked too. Yeah. Reminder to everybody, thanks everybody for being here this morning. A quick note, we're 9 minutes into the show. Likes in the first 10 minutes mean the most to Birds 365. So if you're in the chat, smash that like button. When you like it early on, it tells YouTube to send it to more people, and that helps us grow. So big thanks to all of our people in the chat right now. Philly, Matt, Daz, Eduardo, Jeff Martin, Abe, Sully, Jimmy Wen, Twiz the Jigga, Flexing and Stepping. I saw my man Joe Whips in here, Mike Fittery. Appreciate everybody this morning. Eduardo, I see you too, brother. Hit that like button. Anybody I missed, didn't mean to miss you, but I do appreciate everybody being here. Johnny Mac, yesterday was coordinator day. We'll have Mike Gill coming up in about 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll have BLG in hour number 2. So a great show planned. But your takeaways from coordinator day yesterday, Johnny Mac.
It's all good for Vic, man. I mean, 9 quarters, no touchdowns. Everything's and again, is it fool's gold? Is it not fool's gold? There's always an interesting part to a Vic Fangio press conference where he just says something and you go, all right. And it was the question about Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith. And basically, those guys have been showing some life and, your thoughts, that kind of thing. And he went straight to Nolan and he said, I think Nolan in particular has continued to improve as the season has gone on. He's not a big guy, blah, blah, blah. And he went in.
Yeah.
Boy, he just doesn't like Bryce Huff, man.
I know. And you can see it, man, when he talks about him. It's
He
been
just
consistent now.
He just, I mean, that to me, I was like, oh, okay. He does not like Bryce Huff. So that was my main takeaway. And you didn't get much from Kellen Moore, let's be honest.
Yeah, I get nothing from Kellen.
I asked him about the slow starts.
He laughed. He chuckled.
Yeah, he deflected. And by the way, that was like 18 questions in because I kept getting shouted down by a certain asshole. But it's just brutal. I mean, it was a bluffing session for the first 9, and then I'm like, nobody's going to ask about these slow starts, and then it's like, I guess it doesn't matter because they won the football game, but I mean, it's a big issue.
It definitely matters,
and it's a big issue, and you can't. And Nick Sirianni has already said this before he kind of turned it off because he's obviously frustrated. Everybody's frustrated.
right?
He said it's not sustainable, and he's right. It's not sustainable. But at the same time, I think everybody says, well, they'll figure it out. Well, I mean, will they figure it out? Because it looks pretty freaking bad right now. And maybe it starts this week with Cincinnati because, look, Cincinnati's a good test because they're a good team. They're not a great team, but they can hurt you offensively. With Joe Burrow, obviously.
Yeah.
And Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And there's some weaknesses as well. The offensive line, most notably. And so you can take advantage of that, hopefully. And, but if he's got a clean look and clean pocket with those playmakers, it's going to be a long day for the Philadelphia defense. So this is a good test for the Eagles. Good team, not a great team. So all year, I feel like I've been saying, well, the Tampa Bay game, everybody's jumping off bridges. I'm like, AJ's not out there, Devontae's not out there, Lane's not out there. What do you expect? I'm like, what does it really mean? And then on the positive side, New York Giants without Andrew Thomas. What does it really mean?
Right.
I keep saying this, and I'm like, I don't want to say it, but that's what I believe.
I know. And John, the interesting part of that is the most notable win of the season came in week 1, and there was a lot of up in the air things in that week.
It was
you beat a great team. I think you beat Green Bay. That's a real playoff contender. But were they in form yet in week 1? It was Brazil, neutral field, all the problems with the slippery surface.
It's funny you bring that up because I was on Mike Gill. We're going to have on in a couple of minutes. I was on his show yesterday, and he asked me. He was running down the pantheon of the NFC. Do I think the Eagles are better than the Packers? And I said no. Do I think the Eagles are better than the Falcons? I said yes.
Right.
They beat the Packers. They lost. They lost to the Falcons. They beat the Packers. But I think the Packers are better. I don't think the Falcons are better. So, it doesn't mean just because you win on a particular week, all right, you're better than Green Bay. I think Green Bay is going to be a problem for everybody as they continue to get, start playing a little bit better. And if Jordan Love figures out how to be, he's sort of like the NFC versions of Josh Allen. If he figures out how to be a little less reckless, look out.
Yeah,
With
that dude can play. Yeah, you're right about him, no doubt.
But getting back to the original point, it was like, yeah, I mean, so many of the games this year are like, what can you really take from them? And I think this is the first game you're going to say you can take something from this game, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
If they play poorly, if they play well, you can take something from this game.
Yeah, I think on both sides of the ball too. I mean, the Bengals don't particularly have the best defense in the world, so will your offense, get going in the air, and then defensively, you're playing a good quarterback. Now, they don't have a great offensive line, so maybe that defensive line on the Eagles can create some pressure for the third straight week.
That's the plan, man. They got to, because
they have to, right? Yeah.
If he's clean,
yeah,
like you're not going to be happy with the secondary this week if Joe Burrow's clean. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, I mean, their receiving group is comparable to ours. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I mean,
yeah, they're good.
You don't think they're better than the Eagles too, do you?
Well, I'll say this: the best of the four is Jamar Chase.
Oh, really? You think Jamar is better than AJ?
Yes, I think Jamar Chase is right there with Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, best three receivers in football.
I like it. No, I like Jamar a lot. I think AJ's. I don't know. Maybe that's the Eagle in me. I have AJ in my mental list above Jamar, but I do see the talent that Jamar possesses, and it jumps off the page when you watch him. So good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Let's get to our commercial break. I see our main man, Mike Gill. I can't wait to talk to Mike because, Mike, when you were on last week, if you're listening to me, you had the channel talking for days, Mike Gill, with some of your great takeaways on this football team. Everybody was talking about the Mike Gill interview last week, so we're looking forward to having him on again this week. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Already at the 66 likes this morning. Thank you, guys. Hit that like button. It's the best thing you can do to help us grow and to support the channel. Looks like everybody's in a little bit better mood with me today, Johnny Mac. They were upset with the AJ comments yesterday. Good to see everybody in here this morning. Appreciate you guys. Before we get to our commercial break, let me tell you about our great friends at BetUS. Check out the promo code on your screen right now, and you can see it's YouTube 150. That gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit. So go check out betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they will even give you your own custom account manager to help you place your bets when needed. So go check out betus.com.pa today. Birds 365, back in 3 minutes, everybody, with Mike Gill.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Score and save at Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Wednesday's edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. We're joined now by Mike Gill from 97.3 ESPN Down the Shore. Give Mike a follow at Mike Gill Show, one of the best in the business. Mike, good to have you back on, man. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Ready to go. Got a little Eagles-Bengals. This has not been a good series for the Eagles. It's been ugly.
Yeah.
A lot of
never
ties,
won
I
there,
feel like.
by the way.
Yeah,
Never
Mike.
won in Cincinnati.
I feel like games are tied with this team a lot.
Yeah, they have 2 ties, I believe. Never won it. Now they're rarely there, so Nick Sirianni will tell you, well, what does that have to do with, Bryce Huff, who just got here? But and he's right, but they've never won there, which is weird. They barely go there, which is part of it. But yeah, I was saying, Mike, there's a lot of games this year, and I don't want to be that way. And I talk to you most days, and I said to Zander, it's like, I go back to the Tampa game. I mean, I couldn't take a lot from that game. I couldn't, no AJ, no Devontae, no Lane John. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
They didn't play well, but I'm not going to, jump off the Walt Whitman. And then the same thing with Cleveland and now the really emphatic game against the Giants. I'm like, all right, nice job. Knock down the pin, move on to Cincinnati. But I'm not going to translate it and say that this is the way to win moving forward because you were able to beat up the New York Giants with the running game. I think it's fool's gold.
The take with the Tampa thing is, it's like if you told me in training camp, hey, you're going to play games without A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, I'm going to say, well, this team's not going to be very good. Yeah. I would have that pre-notion of that's not a very good team. So, yeah, that game, it's hard to take. And plus, you didn't have Lane Johnson in the game.
Yep.
You could have A.J. and Devontae and not have Lane and still be like, I don't know what to take from that game. That's how bad they've been when he's been off the field. Yeah, this league changes your mind about teams every 4 hours.
Yeah.
You watch the team play 4 hours on a Sunday. Wow. I mean, imagine being a Saints fan the first 2 weeks. You had the best offense
they were going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, the Eagles fans were scared to death. They scored 45 points a game.
But you have the worst.
You come out hot and then you just collapse after 2 games. That's the worst case scenario for that.
Yeah,
game.
You have the best offensive league. They were number 1 in points scored, yards, everything for 2 straight weeks. And people are like, I think I got to take this team seriously. And the Eagles went down there and kind of struggled through a game, but found a way to win on the road. Now that team's horrendous. Now they've had some injuries. They lost Olave. They've lost Shaheed. The quarterback is out. I mean, you can't make these rush judgments on these teams. So the Eagles run the ball last week and, are they a running team? They don't want to be a running team. And by the way, nor should they want to. They should be able to want to do both. The question is, okay, we know they can run the ball. That's something they've been able to do 22, 23, 20, back
21.
To Jalen's first year in 21. This team could always run the ball. but they got to the Super Bowl the year that they could complement it and be a passing team as well. And the questions are out. Can they do it? Or as the quarterback regress? You know, I heard an interesting thing. I don't know if you guys saw this. I guess it was Orlovsky and Dominic Foxworth were talking about this. That when the league changed the rule about illegal man downfield, that kind of squashed what Hurts was doing well, because the Eagles were able to kind of get down the field and confuse these linebackers. And he was able to really hold, or get these linebackers thinking, you know, that they were going to actually run. And then they're coming up and the linemen are 5 yards down the field. How many offensive linemen down the field penalties have we seen, you know, with the Eagles? A lot.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore. And they're saying he can't figure out what to do now that those linemen can't take those. So that was kind of an interesting soundbite. If you haven't heard it yet, you got to go back and listen to it.
I haven't heard it, but I don't think they changed the rule. They may have made it a point of emphasis.
That could be possible.
But I remember a ton of illegal downfield penalties in 2021 as well. That's always been an issue, because we've always said that in the Nick Sirianni era, that's always been an issue. Eagles are near the top of the league. That, and they can't run a rubber out. Those are the two things we've been focused on. They've gotten a little bit better with the rubber outs. They got a lot of OPI calls because guys are just running into people, not having any savviness whatsoever.
Yeah. Jahan Dotson had that nice rubber out this year, didn't he?
They've been getting better at that. But the illegal man downfield stuff, that's a pain in the ass for RPO teams.
Yeah. And it happened once to the Giants last week. They got called for one. I think it's that penalty is so ticky tack. I mean, come on, you really think the center who's 2 yards down the field?
See, I'm of the you're making it really hard on the defense if you're not calling that, because as you just said, you can't let an offensive lineman be 5 yards down the field.
5 yards, yeah. I mean, if it's egregious, but sometimes these guys are like they're slipping off and they're kind of like 2 yards past. I mean, they're obviously blocking the guy. I don't know. I some of them I feel like are inconsequential to the result of the play.
Well, some of them are inconsequential. You're right, and that maybe that should be the take. Like if it's not involved with the play, like who cares? But if it is, you got to call that thing, or you're making it really difficult on the defense. But from the NFL standpoint, they generally want scoring. So
well, I mean, it was about a 5-minute clip that Orlovsky really kind of broke down why he, and his whole thing was, look, they used to run these double slants and they could do it because the offensive linemen are giving you the illusion that they're running the ball, and then the linebacker.
Well, that's the thing about the penalty. It's so difficult for the offensive linemen. They don't know what it is. It's not an illusion. They're taught to play a run play.
No, the illusion to the defense.
Yeah.
They're giving the illusion to the defense, the linebackers, that they're running the ball. So the linebackers are coming up to make the play, and then these double slants are coming right behind them, and you're getting big yardage.
So the point is, it's Jalen Hurts. You got to make the decision quicker. That's you've got to go bang. Yeah. So the minute he hesitates, then Cam Jurgens is probably going to be downfield. So when everybody yells at Cam Jurgens, it's really a quarterback issue.
Sure. Yeah, and their assertion, which I think everybody's is they're, without that play being a big part of their pass game, they're down to one thing he does that he's comfortable with, which is, AJ, go down the field and I'll throw it up to you, and hopefully you're one-on-one and we make that play. And if that's the case, I don't know that this offense can be what we all were hopeful for, because I think when we're prognosticating the offense at the beginning of the year, we're prognosticating with the best version of Jalen Hurts in mind. And if you're not getting the best version of him, you're getting this offense, and this offense isn't good enough.
Mike, where's the fine line? Because we came in after the game on Monday, and I'm telling John, we're a bully ball team, baby. Rely on that offensive line. Run the football. I understand that that's not going to be what they do, nor do I. I'm also smart enough to know that I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl that way. But I believe there's got to be a happy medium in the middle here where you can use that more take a little bit off of Jalen Hurts' plate, who's clearly struggling to see the field a little bit right now, and build it up that way. I look at it as, stack some bricks, get better each week, maybe add a little bit more to his plate each week, and then hopefully by the end of the year, you have a great running game that teams fear, and you have a great passing game that teams fear. Maybe I'm being too fairy tale world, but where is the happy medium in your eyes?
Well, I was talking about this yesterday in that the league went to this college spread offense, and everybody started to run this spread and 4 wide receivers and RPOs and everything, was run out of the shotgun. So then the defenses all changed. They have these linebackers that weigh 220 pounds. They put one guy on the field, and they got 6 defensive backs to try to, negate what you're trying to do. So teams are starting to be simple again. Okay, you're going to do that. We did this. You did that. Now we're going to go back and do this. You got a 220-pound linebacker? Fine. We'll run the ball at that guy. Make him try to make tackles.
With Ben Van Sumeren, lead block.
Right. Exactly. You're bringing fullbacks back, offset eyes. I mean, this looks like a Tecmo Bowl. You simplify things, then maybe there is a happy medium with just quick bang, bang, stuff that you could just kind of say, hey, simple. You watch what Baltimore does. Colin Thompson was on my show yesterday. He's like, they run 5 plays. It's bang, simple this, simple that. Everything's simple. And that's what the Eagles, I feel like they can run the ball. We know that. It's can they find a simple, happy medium in their pass game that's more than just 40-yard go routes? Because, John, I think you might have asked the question yesterday. Right before you, someone said, you have the most 40-yard plays in the game.
Yeah.
But you can't score in the first quarter. Like, something's weird here. They've got to be able to be simple in the run game and simple in the pass game. They're trying to still do too much, it feels like, in the pass game. And I don't know that. I think we're all coming to terms with the quarterback maybe can't handle it.
Oh, that's a bad sign. Now, you were on X this morning. We'll give Dave Schaller a little shout out because I don't know if people know, but the Sixers open their season tonight. And there seems to be no interest. I mean, no interest. And I thought you brought up a good point. I'm going to translate this to the Eagles, so bear with me, Eagles fans. But, you were talking about Embiid's not playing, Paul George isn't playing. The Sixers are probably trying to load manage this thing all the way to the playoffs. Literally, 50-win season doesn't matter. Nothing matters unless they make a run, win a championship. Nothing matters. But I think that's all the sports, not just the Sixers. And I think it happens, what you're just talking about. We're hopeful that this offense would be this spectacular offense. Everybody, I go back to the Super Bowl season. I have so many Eagles fans all the time, Mike, that they're miserable. Like that wasn't an accomplishment, making the Super Bowl. I've said it on your show. It's Ricky Bobby rules all over. You're first or you're last. That's it. And the Eagles have these expectations where it's not only do you have to win like you did against the Giants, and you got to have the best offense. I think people realize they're not capable of having the best defense, but they need a successful defense, which they've had been. And if you don't reach these expectations, we all look at that 10-1 start last year, most miserable 10-1 team in history, because everybody was like, well, yeah, but.
Well, I think in football, the aesthetics of the victory to the people, the fans that are watching, it means something to them. They have a preconceived notion of the level of the opponent. And if the win over the preconceived notion of the opponent isn't what I thought, then you're not good. This Giant team, you beat them 28-3. You did what you're supposed to do. That's an impressive win in the NFL. I know the Giants aren't a good team, but you're supposed to literally beat them into submission. The Browns the week before, not an impressive team by many people's whatever. And the closeness of that game gives you doubt, which in the NFL, to me, the aesthetics of a victory don't really mean all that much. I don't care if you win 3-0, 34-0. In the end, we look back at games. I mean, there's games, I think Miami beat someone by scoring 70 points last year. What did that do for them? Okay, they beat somebody 70 to whatever. The next week they lost. We have not figured – fans have verbally said it, that this is a week-to-week league, and yet they don't even listen to their own voices. You know what I'm saying? Like, they'll say, this week's so week-to-week, and then complain the very next sentence about their own team's performance. Look, all of these teams – the talent disparity between the best team and the worst team in this league is so close. You know, Kansas City's 53 isn't all that much better than everybody else's. They just have the best quarterback, and he elevates that 53 to 6-0. Quite frankly, I think they get the benefit of the doubt because they're 6-0 because they're Kansas City. If it was anybody else, you'd be like, I don't really believe in them. Their games, they don't look all that good.
Yeah.
All of the teams in this league, they have turned into a parity-driven league. They have no real elite teams. If you like Detroit as the best team in the league, okay, I'm not going to argue with you. But everybody else, I threw teams out at you yesterday, John. I just said, here's the team. Are the Eagles better or worse? And how many teams in this league can you give a definitive answer that, yes, this team is better, or no, they are not? 2, 3, 4. I mean, that's it. This whole league is filled with flaws because the talent level is so close. I mean, Arizona to Detroit is not all that different. It's not that much of a difference in the talent between those two teams. You know, sometimes it's game plan. This week, the matchups, because they have a good line, and where Arizona's a little weaker is on the defensive front. And that's what it comes down to, and why a good team doesn't blow out a bad team record-wise, because really there's not a lot of bad teams in this league anymore. The talent is so even across the board.
Yeah, to answer, I mean, to go back to John's point about the expectation, I do believe that there's different approaches per each year, right? Like when the Sixers, for example, used the Sixers. When they first got Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and everybody in the process, the first time ever we got to the playoffs, everybody was all happy. Okay, now let's build on this. Let's get better. Now, 5 years later, it's like, all right, you still can't get out of the second round. The expectations are now higher. The Eagles went to the Super Bowl, which maybe was a blessing and a curse because it raised the expectation on the team so high that, okay, this is the baseline with Jalen Hurts. We have to build on this, and the only way you can go from there is a Super Bowl win, which has now created expectations that maybe are out of whack. But when you have this type of roster, I mean, that's going to be the expectation. The Commanders aren't trying to win a Super Bowl this year.
It's all encompassing, Zander, in that you're right. The expectations are, hey, they went to the Super Bowl. A lot of the same guys are here. Why can't they get back there? That's what my expectations. But what we've lost in sports is what we've lost everywhere. There's supposed to be a release and a journey. You start in spring training, you go through the 162, and you enjoy the whole ride. But the problem has become, and the fans are a part of it, that the expectations have overshadowed the journey. And then the money that is involved in going to support and watch these teams has become so astronomical that I can't even afford to go to a game, to go on the journey. So I'm going to save up to go to that one playoff game. And if you fail me there, you're dead to me. So it is this whole cycle that needs to be somehow fixed, which isn't going to be fixed because it's gone too far. It's only going to go farther. And I don't know what you do. I mean, the whole, hey, hope, springs eternal. Those are out the window.
I mean, the Phillies, they had a great season, but
the Phillies are now going to be the Sixers. Okay.
Yeah.
No one's going to care about
they
them
already are. Yeah.
Right. Well, and not only that, they're going to bring back most of the same team because they have to, because they're so locked in to the contracts.
Yeah.
And you're going to say, you're going to bring back the same team. I don't care. Like this whole, like back in the day, that's all you knew was bringing back the same team. Now, if you don't change the team complexion every season or every offseason, because the hunger for sports has become, I want the games, I want championships, I want the offseason, I want trades, I want free agency. And if you don't do trades or free agency, you bore me, you've lost me, you've lost the back page. The back page doesn't even exist.
It's like a drug. It's like
dopamine.
I'm with you.
The back
I
page
would
doesn't
say
exist, but we want to be on the back page. We want to be on a page that no longer exists or nobody reads.
College sports is the worst because, like, why would you watch a regular season college basketball game now? Like, who cares?
There's no reason.
Who cares? It means literally nothing. It's a giant preseason for the tournament, the conference tournaments, and then the actual tournament. College football, unless you go to a blue blood school like Zander over there, you can't even afford one loss, or your season's over. You know, if you're a good team,
a little bit with this new playoff, but yes,
but even so, that's for the Alabamas. Like, Alabama can lose, and Ohio State can lose, and Michigan can lose. Michigan's losing too much, but you get my point. The blue blood programs, they can say, all right, we had a hiccup, we'll get back in it. But everybody else, if you're like UTEP and you're having a special season, or even Baylor, you lose one game and you're done. You're done.
Yeah. And I think, like I talk about the Sixer thing. Basically, people complained about Embiid never being healthy and that I don't care about this team unless they get out of the playoffs. So the Sixers finally said, you don't care? Fine. We're not going to play them. Like, that's what it's going to come down to. If you're verbally telling us you don't care about us until the playoffs, and you verbalize he needs to be healthy in the playoffs, then we're going to listen to you. He's not playing. Football, you can't do that as much, right?
No.
The journey is still something
that
football's
the one sport where the regular season still matters a lot.
Yes. But even so, I mean, quite frankly, because of the parity, you could lose a bad game and it doesn't kill you.
Well, that's what I mean. That's helpful. That's what I'm saying. You have there's two things: the scarcity of the games, number one. There's only 17 of them. But that, college football can replicate that even to a greater degree. But what they can't replicate is the hope, because it's so parity driven. You can play poorly and you can sneak into the back end. Yeah. And we've seen it with the Eli Manning Giants, and go win a Super Bowl on a rare occasion if you're playing, your best football late in the season. So there's always this hope, because you're in the playoff hunt, most teams, and you're saying, well, if they just figure it out, the fans still have hope. No other sports league can replicate that. I'm not going to go to EPL because I don't have enough expertise in that. But
it's like the year Miami was tanking for Tua. They were terrible that year. The Eagles lost to them in a game down there in Miami. And it was bad. And I forget, I think they were like 5-6 at the time, or 6-7. They lose that game and they're just written off. And they end up winning their last 4 games, making the playoffs. And actually, I think it was 2019, and won a playoff game. So it's like, you lose a game of a bad Miami team and everybody's killing you. You're horrible. You stink. This team's done. They're over. Playoffs, stop talking. And they end up making the playoffs and actually won everybody back over. Football's a unique thing where you every week change your expectations based on what you saw the previous week, when really it needs to be the whole box. You need to put the whole box into your expectations, not just what you saw the previous week. And so many times we get kind of drawn into this. Well, they just ran the ball 40 times and 250 yards. That's who they are.
Do that again. Yeah, that's
who they are for that week. Why? Because the team just watched you do it and are going to say, well, they're not going to do that against us. So you're going to have to change. Now, the other guy might say, well, if that's what you do well, make them stop you. And that's the whole game of why these teams, I think sometimes they overthink themselves. They say, well, they're going to try to take away the run. We're going to try to pass. It's just a week-to-week proposition of game film and game plan. And sometimes the game plans work and sometimes they don't. And when they don't, it makes you rethink what that team is in the big picture. But it's not the reality sometimes. They just had a bad week and a bad game plan.
Yeah. Vic Fangio kind of mentioned, and I asked Vic, he mentioned early on that it was a very zone-heavy game. And I thought that was interesting. and Vic usually tells the truth, and I think this is how you go about it. So later I asked him about, that comment and why he decided that would be the plan against this Giants team, to be so zone heavy in coverage. And he basically said, well, it wasn't. It was working, so I stuck with it. And I think, one of the things, I think it was Hal Mummy, one of the best things about the XFL, the second version, was they mic'd up the coaches. And people got to see, and this is why it would never happen in the NFL. It was so great. You could see the coaches communicating, calling the plays. And I think it was Hal Mummy, but it could have been somebody else. So he's calling the plays, and his team is rolling, right, Mike? And rolling. And this was his play call for like 3 consecutive plays. Run it again. That was his play call. Because they were rolling.
I used to, when I called play-by-play, I had a guy who would be my analyst, and he'd say all the time, that play there is called again. Run it again. Run it again and again. And I feel like too many teams don't do that. It's like, I got all these plays on this sheet. I got to pick them all. I got to make sure I use every single one of them and call them instead of just doing something simple. I think this game needs to get back to, and we talk a lot, like, just become simple. Simplify this game. Everybody's overthought. The Eagles simplified things. Now, you can't run the ball like that every single week, but the Giants give up 5.3 yards a carry. They're the worst rush defense in the league. Make them show they can stop you, and good for the Eagles that they did that. But I think we all have to understand that is not taking you to a Super Bowl. It might get you through 1 week, but we can't change our expectations based off of one game plan and one game that we saw.
Preaching to the choir.
I think Vic Fangio said something yesterday that kind of agrees with that. He said, they said, hey, Vic, you got 13 sacks. Well, Daniel Jones holds the ball a little too long. I mean, he basically said the quarterback we played sucked. I mean, Thank you, Vic, for telling the truth. You got to the quarterback because he holds the ball too long. He's cognizant of that. He's not sitting there saying, well, we're winning up front. We're kicking ass up front. He said, no, the other team's quarterback holds the ball too long. And that's why they're
the guy is so honest. It's such a breath of fresh air. I mentioned the Zander. Somebody asked him about Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith. And again, he can't hide his disdain for Bryce Huff as a player. He said, I think no, maybe that's a little too harsh, but you get my point. He said he went immediately to, I think Nolan in particular has continued to improve as the season has gone on. It's like, boy, he does not like Bryce Huff as a player.
No, the whole answer in the transcript is about 4 sentences on Smith and one thing. Yeah, well, Huff was out there more because they passed more. That's all.
Yeah, it was. And in Bryce Huff's case, we had some more passing situations in the passing game that allowed him to play some more. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was striking. It struck me at the moment, and then when I went back and read the transcript, I'm like, yeah, that's not good. That's not a good sign for Bryce Huff. Yeah, good sign for Nolan Smith, but not a good sign for Bryce Huff.
I will say Nolan looks better. Mike, I want to ask you about the quarterback now. I mean, you talk about all these, the offense and the approach, and you need to pass the ball to win in the NFL, at least win big in the NFL. Where are you on the quarterback? Because, part of my desire to implement more of the running game, I think, is because I'm looking to take some stuff off Jalen Hurts' plate. John tells me that's probably a bad sign, which he's probably right about. Where are you on the quarterback?
Yeah, I think the quarterback is certainly showing some signs of regression, and that teams look, in 2021, he was an average quarterback at best. They won 9 games basically because they ran the ball. What did I say last week? The star of this team is your offensive line. Make that the star, and then every other star will start to shine brighter because they'll have more opportunities in better coverage situations. And in 2021, they realized that the star was the offensive line. It took them to the playoffs. 2022, Jalen took his game to another level, took him to a Super Bowl. 2023, I think teams said, where the hell did this guy come from? And they watched him and saw what they do and started to say, when we play the Eagles, this is what Jalen Hurts does really well. You're not going to do that against us now. You're not going to just do this, this, and this. we're going to take that away and you got to figure it out. I don't know that Jalen has figured that out. I don't think he's evolved from the guy in 2022 that everything came very easy for whatever reason it is. Is it play call, play design? The play has changed, different coordinator, different voices in his rooms, or him himself. And unless he shows that he could be more than just chuck it up down the field, and that's his one play. Now, look, he has moments when he rips one in there and he looks pretty like there's no fluidity in the game. It's slow. Everything is slow. He looks like he's constantly in slow motion when he moves. When the play gets out of the pocket, the play is over. Soon as he gets out of there, and he's getting out of there more hastily than in the past. He doesn't want to sit there. He gets out, and then as soon as he rolls out to the left, that play's done. You know it from the second he gets out, and it's slow. Everything is slow, tentative. Martin Frank asked a question the other day. Well, the turnovers are down. Is that because he trusts guys? No, because he's not trusting anybody. He's just not throwing it. He's just holding on to it. He's taking sacks. He's rolling out. He's only throwing the ball if he has 100% confidence that he can get it there. And there's only two guys, Goddard's not on the field right now, maybe 2.5, that he feels like I can really throw it to this guy and bad things aren't going to happen. And that's Brown and Smith. And to some extent, I guess they'll throw it to Calcaterra right now. They have a little bit of a connection from time to time, but it feels there's a tentativeness in his game that is holding him back.
Yeah, time to throw. I'm just double checking because you brought that up in hesitation. So the slowest quarterback in the league is Sam Darnold, traditional play action offense. Brock Purdy, number 2, traditional play action offense. There's a reason those guys are up with those numbers. 3.11 for Darnold, 3.1 for Purdy. So they're essentially the same. And then comes Jalen at 3.08. And he doesn't play that offense. And that's not a good sign. And Mike, if you look at his history, 2021, he was at that level. 2023 was at that level. And now he's at that level. 2022, he was at 2.78. He's got to get back down to that level. He's never going to be Tua, who gets rid of the ball as soon as he gets it.
Well, I guess the question is, can you game plan that? Can you say, look, this is the play. 1, 2, 3, back. Well, they don't. Part of it is they don't go under center, so it's shotgun, and now he's standing there. I don't think that does him any favors. I don't think it does the run game. I know it sounds ridiculous because the run game's been very good. I think the run game could be better if he was under center. But I guess the question is, if he was 1, 2, 3, and they just said 1, 2, 3, bang. That's, Barrett Brooks used to tell me the story all the time. John Gruden was the coordinator, and he would tell Bobby Hoying, throw the ball to this guy, 1, 2, 3, he'll be open. I don't care. Just throw it there. If it's an interception, it's my fault. And the guy had 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then the next year, Gruden was gone, and Dana Bible came in, and he didn't tell Bobby Hoying where to throw the ball. And guess what? Bobby Hoying wasn't very good. Sometimes who's telling you what to do and what's going to be there? And it seems that, can you just say, listen, this is the play. You got A.J. Brown. It's going to be open. Throw it to him. Is he not trusting enough of that? And who knows? I mean,
yeah. And I've heard Barrett tell that story as well. But, I don't want to compare Jalen Hurts to Bobby Hoying. There's young quarterbacks who need that kind of guidance. If we're talking about Jalen Hurts needing that type of...
Was Shane Steichen giving him that guidance?
It's a fair question.
Boy,
22 is now looking more and more like a one-off and not the baseline for what Jalen Hurts is, or even really close to it.
And I love Shane. I'd like to give him the credit, but I really think it's the quarterback. He doesn't trust what he's seeing.
Well, why is that, though, John? Why does he not trust it versus what he did?
Could be a host of reasons. Could be thinking about too much. Maybe he's got too much autonomy now.
Because if you have trust, they've given this guy everything a quarterback would want, right? Yeah. I mean, if you're a quarterback and you're saying, I don't trust what I'm seeing, I just paid A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith for you. Well, what more do you want me to do for you?
Well, he trusts A.J., but, obviously he needs to trust more. You have to have that mentality. I go back to that Atlanta game against who were they playing when Cousins threw for 500 yards? The overtime game. Who the hell? What was it? I think it was
night game.
And Drake London got hurt in overtime. The next play, he went to Darryl Hodge, who never plays, and won the game. Won the game because he trusted.
Sometimes that's my fear with the throws to AJ. Like he's just throwing it up there. It's not progression reading. It's not reading it's just I see AJ in single coverage. I can toss it up, and AJ's probably gonna make the play. Versus like that play with Kirk that you talk about. I mean, that was textbook quarterbacking right there. Boom. He saw it immediately. He didn't care who was running the route. Yeah. The guy was there. He was open. He spread the defense, and he got him the ball. Touchdown.
Yeah. That was the game against Tampa. It was a Thursday night.
Yeah, it was great. That was a great game.
And he trusted a guy who never plays because it's his job. You're supposed to be in there. You're open. As Zander points out, that's the progression. He won the game with it.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts doesn't make that throw.
Is it the play or is it the play he trusts or the player?
In Kirk's case, it's the play. It's the progression. It's not even the play call. It's all right. This guy's open.
Right.
First progression. It's supposed to be Drake London, but he got hurt from one play.
Yeah.
And that's his best receiver. And maybe give credit to the coordinator, Zach Robinson, as well. But they just called the play. It was open. He went. He put the ball where it was supposed to go. It's not about.
I think what it comes down to is we all know the Eagles have the skill talent. Their offensive line is fine. I mean, yeah, they might not be where they want to be right now because Mailata's out, but their line is better than 85% of the lines in this league. So you can't bitch about that either. They have all the skill players that they need. It comes down to whether that guy that's making the most money out of everyone on the field is capable. And right now, he's capable sometimes, but not enough for them to be what they ultimately need to be. That's the difference. That's your difference. You look at the Lions. Their skill guys are very good. Their offensive line is very good. And you know why they're very good? Their quarterback's making every play. No one looks at Jared Goff and says he's better than this guy, that guy, or that guy. But he's not a problem for them. He's part of why. Jalen Hurts is part of a problem. He's not part of why. Right? I mean, that's what it's coming down to. So the only person that can answer, I know I was not a very good math student, okay? Algebra, geometry, those things are a little wonky to me. Here's what I know. X and Y is not equaling Z because that Z is not good enough right now. And now you have a clunky formulation of some sort of mathematical issue. I feel like the Steiner brothers here. 42 and 37 and blah, blah, blah. It's not good enough. That's the problem. It's not good enough.
You got an elite
running back. Yeah, you got an elite running back. You got an elite wide receiver on both sides of the field. You got a very good tight end. You got one of the best offensive lines in football.
That's the best
to be able to score is ridiculous. And it comes down to the highest paid player on the field in every situation. When an offense isn't good, you don't say, man, that running back's holding us back. No. Why are these teams not good? Their quarterback stinks. I'm not saying he stinks, but they are what they are. Mediocre. And that's what they have right now. They have a mediocre quarterback.
Yeah, I forget, but I think it was Schefter who put it out there, but could have been somebody else. I think over the last 4 games, something like that, Jared Goff's got 15 incompletions and 18 touchdowns for the Lions. The Lions have scored 18 touchdowns. They have more touchdowns than they have incompletion.
It's unbelievable. Jared Goff is on a run right now like no other. I mean, he's playing like a top 3 quarterback in the league, top 4, top 5, maybe. You know, and he's right up there with the best in the league right now. The way he's playing. Yeah, now, a lot of it is the team around him, but still, man, he looks really good.
The MVP race is interesting. You got Jalen, you got Lamar Jackson, who's having an epic start to his season. He's the leader. Mahomes is number 2. And he's got 6 touchdowns and 8 interceptions.
Yeah,
he's the number 2 guy in there. Jared Goff is like 4. Josh Allen has 12 touchdowns and no interceptions right now for Buffalo.
Josh Allen is another guy who's playing really good football right now. Those are the top guys.
Obviously, with Mahomes, it's reputation. Jared Goff.
I think he's earned it. Like, it's one thing for another quarterback to get reputation points. Like Mahomes.
Well, I'm talking about, awards are stupid anyway. I saw somebody going on a tyrant. Should Lamar Jackson be in the MVP race until he does something in the playoffs? And I'm like, what the fuck does that have to do with the MVP? That's not what the award is.
Well, listen, a lot of this is too. The betting market is a market that's trying to attract dollars. They know you're going to put money on Mahomes if his odds say that they're there. So they know they're going to get that money on Mahomes. It's like, why are the Philadelphia sports teams always connected? Because they know the sports bettor in Philly is going to pour money on that team or that guy because they're there. That's generally what ends up happening.
Yep, they're gripped in you, so everybody knows it. But go bet at BetUS. I'll say that. They're not gripped in you. At Mike Gill Show's not gripped in you. Mike Gill, Sports Bash 2 to 6 every afternoon. We got to figure something out. The Eagles changed their schedule, Mike. I'm going to be in the locker room at 3.
Yeah, they're constantly they're killing us.
Practice is at 3. Locker rooms at 4:30. This is all Vic's fault, by the way. Vic likes to practice.
Yeah, we had, so just for a little inside baseball, John does my show at 3:00 every day. We've been doing it for a while. No problems ever because 3:00, they're in the safe. Well, this year it's Sirianni talks at 3 on Monday. So we've been moving John to 5.
He screwed you, Mike.
They're screwing my whole show.
I know.
We'll figure it.
Man.
I'll look at the schedule. I'll text you.
Well, Mike, you screwed my thought process today because now you brought in some other problems, and I'm like, shit, I don't know how to get out of this thing, man.
One thing I do think we didn't get to talk about a lot today is I do think Vic is feeling better about his personnel. He's getting a little bit more familiar with his defense. I don't think they're going to be a great defense by any stretch, but I think he's feeling better about what he can do. He's evolving, and he's given a little bit, fool's gold maybe, but he's given a little bit more leash to, Nakobe Dean. Okay, I can use him better. I think having Cooper has given him a little chess piece that he can do some things with. Mitchell is a kid that can play. He can cover.
By the way, Joe Banner got in trouble by saying pump the brakes on Quinyon. Did you guys see that?
I did not, but
I saw the Joe Banner thing.
I think he has more trust now that Quinyon, he can handle some stuff, So I think the defense is the ceiling for the defense. To me, I feel better about, sadly, than I feel with the offense. And the offense has better talent.
That's unbelievable. By the way, that is unbelievable. What you just said, that the defense is,
and that's all quarterback related, Mike. Right? I mean.
Yeah, it's the most important position on the field. And if I can't get to the level of saying that guy can be exponentially better than he is right now, then this is what you are offensively. I mean, I said at the beginning of the year, this team should score 30 points a game almost by rolling onto the field. And they can't.
Yeah. And no Fred Johnson, no Jordan Mailata again. Probably no. We'll get a better indication.
You think that's a reason that they could actually run more this week? Forget like the ground and pound star. Sometimes the easiest way to mitigate a good pass rush is by running. I mean, you don't have Mailata. You might want to hide some of Fred's deficiencies.
Trey Hendrickson this week.
Yeah. So do you run into him and try and mitigate the pass rush a little bit?
Yeah, maybe. Well, if I were the Eagles, I would try to keep the ball away from Joe Burrow as well. So I don't think this game's going to be fool's gold, Mike. I think this is a game we're going to say, whatever happens, good or bad.
From this game. Burrow, by the way, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He completes 70% of the passes. This could be one of those ugly games where you're saying they couldn't get a stop at
22 of 24 game.
Yeah, their offensive line stinks. That's where their one issue is. But Burrow's so good at getting the ball out. They've got great weapons. They've really got Gesicki's a pretty athletic tight end. They don't use him all that much, but the tight end, he's a matchup problem. The 2 receivers are outstanding. The running back, Brown, he's been a nice addition. They lost
Sydney's twin brother, Chase Brown.
Chase Brown. So this offense is tough. Their offensive line is their problem. But, man, Burrow, this is one of those games, like Kirk Cousins, just ate you up. Burrow is Kirk Cousins on steroids. I mean, and his weapons are way better than Drake London and Mooney, who were very good, but this is another level. So this could be one of those offensive days or defensive days where you're like, What happened to the defense we just saw the last 2 weeks? I was buying into them, and now I'm not.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm interested in this game, right? What's Vic do? Vic clearly has the number out for the lesser quarterbacks in the league. I mean, he made Deshaun Watson and Daniel Jones look like worse than they already are considered. Now you got a good test, right? I mean, what's he going to do
with
against
this offensive line? I don't want to hear, well, we should get pressure with 4. You got to get some heat on this guy and make him rush and hope that your back end is up to the challenge. Because if you let him sit back there.
I don't know, man. I'm the exact opposite. Vic said this was a big zone week. Double down, baby. Zone it up. Because Jamar Chase will kill you. If you're out there in man.
He's the man. I love Jamar Chase. He's probably top 3.
Yeah.
He better than AJ, Mike? You think he's better than AJ?
Oh, that's a good one. Is he better than AJ? Man.
As Zander knows, I love AJ. Jamar's better than AJ.
John had
Best 3 receivers in football, not in any particular order. Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson. If you made me put them in order, I'd go Jefferson, Hill.
Now, I think AJ's been much more productive than Chase, but I understand there's different variables that go into that.
Chase is, I think, like AJ's just such a big physical receiver that I don't think that, I don't even think the Eagles use him to the best of his abilities. I think they can get better, more out of him and use him in better. I don't think they use him enough in letting him catch the ball underneath and making someone tackle him. Who wants to tackle that dude? Nobody. When they do it, he breaks tackles.
No, that's why it's frustrating they don't go over the middle of the field. They have the best, they have the best slant guy in the business if they want him, but Jalen is just not comfortable doing that a whole lot.
AJ could be better, I think, than he is here if they utilize what.
It's hard to be better. AJ's very good.
I know. I'm not saying that he stinks.
Which is why I didn't like the comment after the game about targets. You got 3K yards in 2 years, AJ. Shut up.
Well, they only threw 14 passes. Hey, if you're poor Devontae Smith, you got 1 throw and you lost 2 yards on it. I mean,
he wasn't complaining about his targets. He was complaining about the targets.
I still think it was a bad time for that comment. I don't care.
DeAndre Hopkins, by the way, does he have anything left in the tank, John?
Oh, Andy will get it out of him. He'll corn dog it.
Real quick, there's a lot of trade connections with Eagles and wide receivers. Do you think they're still looking to now upgrade Dotson?
No. Why? To bring in another guy who's not going to get the football? Why?
That's what I'm saying. To me, it's like, does Dotson just stink, or do they just say, look, we just don't use that position?
They just don't use that position.
It's the quarterback, Mike. It's what you talked about a second ago. We don't even get the most out of Devontae Smith, I don't believe.
I mean, Jahan Dotson was a disappointment in Washington, but he still caught 50 balls.
To get him. Yeah. So it was like, did you have legitimate visions for this guy?
Oh, they did. Yeah, clearly. That's a lot to give up.
If Jahan Dotson couldn't perform when both AJ and Devontae were out of the lineup, then I have no hope of him being.
By the way, he made a couple big plays. Big plays in the Cleveland game. People forget already. He made 2 big plays in the Cleveland game. That's what you want from Jahan Dotson. Those little pockets where you get an opportunity to make the play, and that's where he was better. He was better for one game. He was better than Quez Watkins. He got 2 opportunities to make plays, and he made plays.
Yeah, by the way, we're pouring on poor Dotson. Half the time he's open and he doesn't get the ball thrown.
Oh, yeah, that's
what I'm saying. That's why it would be foolish to go with another wide receiver. You just don't have the progression quarterback to get him the football. Mike, thanks for joining the show, man. Another great segment with you, man. You're always making a stink here on Birds 365. The viewers love it. I love it, obviously, and we appreciate you doing it again today. Mike, thanks, man. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, guys. See you.
Good stuff.
Thanks, Mike.
Everybody follows Mike on Twitter at Mike Gill Show, and follow his show 97.3 ESPN down the shore. He does a really good job. He mentioned he has John on basically daily. Mike does a really, really good job. And one of my favorite guests to bring on is Mike Gill. So great stuff there. We'll have BLG, Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation, coming up in about 10 minutes. Johnny Mac, I'm not going to take a break now because then we're going to be 4 minutes away from BLG. I'll wait to take a break at around 17. Any takeaways from what Mike said there, man? I mean, I was almost insinuating earlier in the week that part of my desire to regress the passing game is because of the quarterback and maybe allowing him time to acclimate. I think Mike brought up some good points there. Where are you on this, Johnny Mac, with the passing the football, running the football, what the quarterback is capable of, and the best method to win with this particular player?
Boy, it's a tough question. That's the problem. That's what everybody's wrestling with. Like I have no problem with people making that argument that, well, you should scale it back because he can't do this, he can't do that. Like I think that's a valid argument. But I also think there's an admittance with that, and it's like, all right, we're limited.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want that, my only point is then stop talking about having the great offense, the historic offense. You ain't getting it. So it's catch-22. If you've gotten to that point, and I haven't gotten there personally, but if you've gotten to that point where you say, we can't do this, we can't do that because of the quarterback, well, then all that's off the table. You can't have it both ways. You're not going to have an historic offense running the football. As good as Saquon Barkley has been, it doesn't work that way. You know, the greatest show on turf, nobody talks about Marshall Faulk, and he was better.
Yeah, no,
that's a Hall of Fame player. It's about the passing aspect. You have to have that part of it. Our buddy John Stolness, and Mike said it as well.
Yeah, I read John's article last night, if that's where you're going, yeah.
Yeah. And he's right, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's and maybe if they change the rules and do a bunch of different things and it goes back to the 70s, maybe it changes, but not right now. And John's, for those who didn't see it, establishing the run is great. Establishing the pass leads to Super Bowls. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, I always say the most difficult team for any, and I brought it up with the trade market with Howie earlier, the most difficult thing for any NFL franchise is to be honest with themselves. And if you're honest with yourself and you realize you have a ceiling and say, our best way to get to that ceiling is to just run the football consistently, be a run-first team, like Derrick Henry in Tennessee, and they went very far, like Adrian Peterson in Minnesota, and they made a bunch of playoffs. Fine, build around it. But that's not what the Eagles believe. And
well, can I challenge you on one thing there? Because I have a feeling, and maybe I'm dead wrong, and that's fine if you tell me I am. I have a feeling the Eagles have already had this conversation with themselves, and that's why they signed Saquon Barkley in the offseason. Right, like you go into the offseason last year, John, most NFL teams, though, with our offensive talent would look and say, okay, we got to improve the defense. Now, I know they've invested the draft capital in the defense, but you make a massive free agency signing on a running back when you already have 2 top 10 or 2 top 12 wide receivers, a top tight end, and a top offensive line, and you got production out of your running backs the last 2 years. Like, isn't that in a way a signal by Howie to say, I understand the limitations of the offense and I'm doing everything I can to boost what that feeling can be by adding another dynamic playmaker who doesn't require to get the ball through the air?
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why.
Okay,
good. And I've had this discussion with Howie multiple times. And I've mentioned it over the years. Now people know they were going to draft Christian McCaffrey in 2017 if they had the opportunity. They would have considered trading up for Bijan Robinson. And apologize for my voice again, but goes in and out. But when they like a running back, and it's the case with Saquon Barkley as well, and when they see a running back, it's about the passing game. And that's why I was so against the signing. And people would say, because for them, it's about the passing game. That's what makes Saquon different, Christian different, Bijan different than regular running backs. That's what they value. It's always about the passing game. And ironically, I was right about that. Not going to be all that relevant in the passing game. And part of that has to do with the quarterback, to be honest. But that's where they differentiate the running backs. Can you help us in the passing game? Can you make a difference in the passing game? They knew they a bunch of guys. They could run the football with Miles Sanders, as Mike pointed out. They could run the football with DeAndre Swift.
So break down then how you think Saquon helps so much in the passing game if they don't particularly use him in the passing game. Okay.
And I said he wasn't.
Yeah.
So I got that part of it right.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
I said where he's going to make the team better is closing out games. Now he's been great running the football, obviously. Hasn't really, except for the wheel route against Green Bay. 16 catches for 103 yards. You take out that 27-yard reception, I think it was 27. You're at 15 catches for what?
76
yards. 76 yards, yeah. I mean, that's nothing.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, that's what you said. You said, what, 300 yards top, somewhere in that range with the passing game. That's what it looks like it's going to be.
But that's, I'm just telling you, that's the Eagles' philosophy with running backs. That's where they see the outlier. Can this guy help me in the passing game? They thought he would help more in the passing game. And I don't know if it's his fault or if it's more of the quarterback's fault. But I'm just saying the general philosophy wasn't about helping Jalen Hurts. The general philosophy was, oh, now we got another weapon in the passing game who can run the football.
Right. So you don't think Saquon's disappointing right now to them, do you?
No. He's
I'm just saying, because if they expected stuff in the passing game and it's not happening.
Well, that's their own shortcomings. But from the standpoint, they probably come to the realization that he's not going to help that much in the passing game.
Yeah.
But
let's get to a couple super chats before, and then we'll get to a break. Get BLG up. Do you have a final thought there? Do you want to get out?
Well, remember, as you've seen with Bryce Huff and you've seen with some other players, sometimes the GM is not on the same page as the coaching staff, and you hand players to the coaching staff, and at that point the coaching staff does what they want to with the particular player. So that's Howie's philosophy with running backs. Doesn't mean it's Nick's trying to win a game, and he's proven pretty consistently he'll do whatever he needs to do to win a game. And so there's a difference, and they're not always on the same page, nor should they be, to be honest. I mean, that's part, they have different jobs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's get to real quick. Let's roll through these super chats, and then we'll get to BLG, Brandon Lee Gowton, coming up next here on Birds 365. Anthony Wilson checks in. Appreciate it, Anthony. He says, Zander knows I'm a big McMullen fan, but John, you're smoking if you think Chase is better than Brown. Only thing Jamar has on Brown is speed. Your response, John?
It's funny. People are killing me yesterday because I love AJ Brown. I mean, when you say somebody, I think the best three receivers in football are Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase. And when you say somebody's top five, that is not an insult.
Yeah, right. You're right.
Jamar Chase is phenomenal, and you will see it, and you will not like it. So you better get the pass rush home, because this week's going to be meaningful. Because you think Quinyon Mitchell's an all-pro cornerback? Get ready. Get ready.
You're about to find out, right, when you go up against Jamar Chase. Appreciate it, Anthony. Caleb checks in. A good pass game is clearly a must, but we're 14-1 when we run more than pass with Nick. Nobody thinks you should pass 14 times a game.
That is the most. 20 if you're leading, this bothers me. I see BLG smile. If you're winning late, you run the football. The Eagles were up 28-3. I think they ran it. They ran 15 plays. 14 of them were runs
in the fourth quarter. Kenny Pickett came in for the fourth quarter and had one pass attempt.
Come on. It's common sense. If you're winning, you run.
I think people want a more balanced approach early.
If you're losing, you got to throw late. Believe me. Hey, if you're losing by 10 points in the fourth quarter and they're running the football 14 times out of 15, you're going to want the coach ridden out on a rail, and you should. Think about that. Down 10 points. Let's run it. Let's run it.
I hear you, John. I get what you're saying. Abe checks in. Abe, Barkley has 3 50-plus yard runs this season, while from 2019 to 23 season, Eagles only had 6. Yeah, I mean, Barkley's been a big impact in the running game.
Home run hitter, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, he's Dave Kingman in his prime. He can go 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts and then bang, 55-yard run. And you got to be so disciplined. You can stop him 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard, bang, home run. It's a really nice thing to have.
Last chat here before we get to the break. Sorry, BLG, to keep you waiting. We'll get to you in a second. Rashid says, what's up with the chatter on Hurts? First 4 games, y'all say he plays well. We just had to eliminate turnovers. Last 2 games, no turnovers. Now I hear he's not good. Why?
Well, I can't speak for everybody. But generally, when he plays well, I say he plays well. When he plays poorly, I say he plays poorly. I don't think he played either. I think he was fine against the Giants. But they played a different style of game. He only threw it 14 times. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's an MVP candidate when they're throwing it 14 times. There wasn't a lot of opportunity in the passing game. On a particular play, I think the 3rd and 3 and the 4th and 3 were the most interesting to me. 3rd and 3 before the AJ touchdown. He was awful. Yeah. There's wide open guys underneath. He's for whatever reason
was right.
He's holding the football. I don't know. And then 4th and 3, it's perfect. In the bucket, perfect throw, in stride, touchdown. You need some consistency from play to play.
I saw this last night on Twitter. I forget who put it out there. Jalen Hurts makes the easy stuff look hard sometimes, and the hard stuff look ridiculously easy. And I thought that was so true. Let's get to our commercial.
That's a good comment. Yeah, we got to get to BLG.
Yeah, let's get to BLG real quick. Let's get to our commercial break. Appreciate everybody being here. Back in 3 minutes with BLG.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Score and save in Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. Joined now by Brandon Lee Gowton of Bleeding Green Nation. BLG, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Doing good, guys. How's it going?
Good to see you, BLG. You saw a little bit of that conversation. So I'll start there because John Stolness, our buddy over at Bleeding Green Nation, wrote a column, and I thought it was a good basically explanation of this situation. Everybody gets fired up because they were so good run, and they were. But, you know, John wrote, establishing the run, great. Establishing the pass leads to Super Bowls. Where are you in the, hey, it's 1975. Let's run the football every week, BLG. Transitive property. Run it all the time, every time.
Yeah, that's an exercise. And, correlation, not necessarily being causation, but
Yeah.
I think that the Eagles obviously have an extremely talented player in Saquon Barkley, and their running game as a whole can be really strong. And I think there's absolutely times to lean into that, especially if the pass game isn't clicking, and that's okay, for a certain amount of time, whatever it is. But, look, when we talk about like the 2021 season, when they basically did that, they had to pivot to their running game being like the foundation of their offense. You can see how that obviously has its limitations, as it did that season when they ran into the Bucs, and the Bucs were able to shut down the run in the playoffs, and the Eagles had no counterpunch to that with their passing game. So certainly the passing game needs to be better and gets on track here, especially against the better teams. But when you play the bad teams, yeah, it's okay to just run the ball and get by if that's what you need to do.
BLJ, where are you on the quarterback? Because I think most of this conversation does come down to him. I mean, I came on the show on Monday and I'm like, bully ball, baby. And part of me saying that is not so much that I love running the ball, but it's part of me watching Jalen Hurts struggle to see the field a little bit early in the year right now, not quite getting through his progressions. I mean, maybe this ramped up passing game is too much for Jalen and the running game helps him. Now, John points out, boy, you're in a bad spot if you paid a quarterback $50 million and now you want to take stuff off his plate. I will acknowledge that is true. Where are you on the quarterback right now in this equation?
Yeah, I was thinking about that from a level of like when people say run the ball, typically they're really saying like, we don't love the way our quarterback is playing right now, or clearly don't have the full trust in him. I think Jalen, look, he's going to be better than he was against the Giants in terms of, you can trust him to have more passing volume than just 14 attempts. But yeah, I don't think he had an amazing game from a standpoint of holding the ball a little too long, especially early on there. Not seeing the field well, as you mentioned there. And he made up for it at times in big ways, like, the fourth down, throw to AJ Brown, and then the play where on 3rd and 7, the Eagles' only third down conversion of the game, he breaks free from that blitzer, takes off running. Like, not many quarterbacks can make that play. So, there's obviously, it's not as simple as he was bad. There's things he can do that are special and unique and really good. But when it comes like to that AJ Brown play, that's a low percentage throw. That's not what you want to like build the offense out of. It's obviously great he can do that, but you can't just rely on that week in and week out. I mean, apparently you can. The Eagles have been doing that with AJ the past couple weeks here. But like big picture, you want more high percentage completions, right? Like that has to be more of a regular thing. And the offense has to, I feel like, to flow better than just being like feast or famine, hitting that big play or not. So I think those are the kind of things you would want to see with more consistency.
Yeah, that segment was so interesting to me because I thought, as I mentioned, the 3rd and 3 was just pathetic. It's like, why are you holding on to the football? Should have been an easy conversion. And then the 4th and 3 is literally perfect. The ball was perfectly placed. And I'm like, that to me sums up the frustration with Jalen Hurts. It's like, and by the way, if you convert the 3rd and 3, maybe you score, maybe you don't. And it ends up working out very well because they scored the touchdown. The consistency from play to play, to me, is where Jalen Hurts has to get better. Because right now, I said it about Saquon. Saquon's a home run hitter, Jalen's kind of a home run hitter as a quarterback. You don't want a home run hitter. I want a 330 hitter at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I want a guy who's locked in every single play.
Yeah, and I think he does deserve credit for not turning the ball over in 2 straight games after that being a huge issue for him. I wonder how much of that is kind of been in his head and maybe being a little bit like too cautious at times. And then maybe, I don't want to be speaking out of both sides of my mouth saying he can't turn it over and then he's too cautious, but I do think he kind of has to like thread the needle here a little bit more with that consistency and like willing to go over the middle. It's not like I'm not saying he needs to make way more risky throws all the time. But yeah, I think you have to find a better balance. And like you said, I mean, both of you guys, just like the Devontae Smith, that's a layup. Obviously he's looking for Kenny Gainwell at first down the field there, but like has to know he can come off of that and has to know. And it's another example, I guess, really of like, and something I've talked about here on the show with you guys, like Jalen Hurts not always being the best situational football player. Like it's third down. Yeah, you can go for on 4th down there, 4th and 3, but like just get the first. Okay, the big play's not there. Okay, we can live to see another down. Hit Devontae, got a new set of downs. Like we've seen him at times where the situation, like what he does, doesn't necessarily make sense with the game situation. And there's a coaching element in there too, but I think part of that has to just be innate in a quarterback as well.
Yeah, I think that 4th and 3 play, I mean, it was a great play. It was a perfect throw. I said, yeah, I mean, what a great throw it was. But I do think it kind of masks some of the quarterback's deficiencies, right? That's not like a progression read throw. That's not – you see AJ in single coverage and you heave it up there. That Devontae Smith play on 3rd down, that was like simple progression. Get to your second read. He's right there, right in front of you. And Jalen couldn't do it, and then he makes a great play on 4th down to make up for it, like what you said, which is great. I mean, it's great that they have that, but it's not something you can build on. And then to John's point, you want the 330 hitter. And, I don't think that's what Jalen is. BLG, let me ask you about Howie right now. November 5th is the trade deadline. So a couple weeks out, Chiefs make a move today for a receiver. Do you think the Eagles will be players potentially at the trade deadline? And if you do think they are, where do you think they'd go and how big of a move might they make?
Well, they often have been, right? For most of these years. The downside is outside of Jay Ajayi when the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Who also, that one wasn't like, I mean, that wasn't a home. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. So, and he had good contributions that year, but obviously he kind of flamed out after. So it's not like he's really ever like just like truly crushed the trade deadline. Like got a player who not only helped that year, but also beyond. So
Golden Tate won you a playoff game by running the wrong route.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I guess help them with their comp pick formula or whatever afterwards. But yeah. So I think my takeaway from that, if Howie's going to learn anything, is that, maybe you can't just be like, hey, we got Kevin Byard on like a discount. Like, wow, what a steal of a deal. Maybe you're getting what you pay for. Maybe if you're going to make a trade, actually pay a premium, like go after the big fish as opposed to some kind of half measure. So I don't know if that's how Howie's mindset is, but that's kind of would be my takeaway. That would be my suggestion for him. Like if you're going to go shopping, like pay the full price. Don't be looking for a discount.
Yeah. But as for people looking Howie likes to do things. He doesn't like to stand still. So it might be Gennard Avery. It's more likely to be nothing, Robert Quinn, but he'll probably do something. And I think the most difficult part, I mentioned this with Zander earlier, BLG, is you got to be honest with yourself. Like they're coming off a game where you look great defensively. They haven't given up a touchdown in 9 quarters. But again, you look at the opponent. Nakobe Dean played really well against the Giants, but the larger sample size hasn't been great. As you turn the corner, is there still upside? Or do the Eagles need a linebacker? Is that a position Howie should be looking at?
I don't think they will, from the standpoint of they seem to like Bond a lot, of course. And I think I mentioned here, like I think that's a player you can reasonably think might get better as the season goes on and he gets more experience playing that position after never truly fully playing at that position really before this season, or at least to the extent that he is now. And then with Nakobe, a really encouraging game. I think part of it is just what we've always kind of said about him going back to training camp, where there are certain things he does really well. And those things are when he operates downhill as a run defender, as a blitzer, obviously, or pass rusher. And it's just not a player you're really going to super always trust in coverage and hope he can kind of just make it work, or you can survive that and live with the strengths there and have Vic Fangio play up to those strengths as much as possible. So yeah, I think they're going to still ride with those guys. And then, look, Ben Van Sumeren, aka
he's the fullback. He's got
fullback.
Other things on his plate.
Yeah. But even Jeremiah Trotter as well. You have here, I think they'd want to see what they might have in some of those guys before they would
by
look
the way,
outside.
Those were great lead blocks by Ben Van Sumeren. Just tremendous lead blocks.
I really feel like they're going to get him the ball at some point, and it's either going to go incredible, it's going to work out great, or it's going to be a total disaster. Like no room in between.
As long as Kenny Pickett isn't making the throw, because he was wide open.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, he's a fun little story. Yesterday was Big Day. So every press conference Vic Fangio has, Brandon, there's one thing I go, oh, all right. And that moment yesterday was when he was asked about, in a combination, he was asked about Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff. And he just went all Nolan Smith and no Bryce Huff. I mean, I think Nolan in particular has continued to improve as the season has gone on. Some nice things to say. And then, but in Huff's case, we had some more pass rushing situations, and that allowed him to play more. That's it. Am I reading too much into that? Because Vic tends to be painfully honest, and I just don't think he likes Bryce Huff as a player.
I mean, yeah, that's been clear. Going back to training camp, when he's saying he needs to improve as a run defender.
Back in training camp, I still had some hope that he could grow, and he could, and he's at this stat. Now it's like, we had more pass rushing situations. That's it.
I do think Bryce Huff did some encouraging things, or at least, relatively to what we've seen this year, and expectations going really down. In addition to the sack he had, I thought he was making Daniel Jones step up in the pocket and knocking him off his spot with some frequency. I think Next Gen Stats credited him with like 5 pressures. That's by far his most this year. So not going to say, he's totally turning it on, going to be worth the contract the Eagles gave him. But the bar right now, after such a slow start, is like, can this guy even be useful and just not a liability out there? So I think that's a step in the right direction for him. But I mean, I think Nolan Smith too is also just kind of a player ultimately, like that any coaching staff is going to have a hard time not liking from an effort standpoint, with just how much intensity and hustle he plays with. I think like coaches are, if he's playing poorly, I think they can at least like live with that, knowing he's going to go out there and at least give it a full go. And obviously younger than Bryce Huff as well. So, maybe you just have more hope for him and what he can be eventually as an unproven kind of guy. But yeah, I mean, I think Nolan Smith has played well here. I mean, he has sacks in back-to-back games now. He only had 1 as a rookie. So, and he started this past game. Vic downplayed that because they were base. But still, I mean, like it could have been someone else. So I think that's a good sign.
Another thing that will get downplayed this week, and I understand the context, but BLG, Jordan Davis, 12 snaps. I understand they were in more 4-man fronts. I get it. Giants were passing all day. Not the game for Jordan Davis, but does that open up, a can of worms where you're like, okay, is this guy a bust? Remember, we spent a 13th overall pick. I understand his role is different and not applied there, but you spent a 13th pick on this guy. Like, he played 12 snaps, which is 20% in a game. Are we ready to start having the Jordan Davis as a bust conversation, or am I taking it way too far?
I mean, it all depends on your expectations. I don't think it's too far from the standpoint of Howie Roseman himself said that he has to be an impactful player on 3rd down as a pass rusher when they drafted him at that spot. So, if you want to talk about Jordan Davis in the context of where he was drafted and therefore, Howie Roseman's part in why he's on the team, absolutely fair discussion. But as far as Vic Fangio goes, I mean, he didn't draft Jordan Davis, and he doesn't need to be beholden to that draft position as much as he needs to do whatever he thinks is going to give the team the best chance to win. So I think it's fine how Vic Fangio is handling it if he feels like this is the best way to go about it. and it's not only it's 12 snaps. I think it's 0 on third down in the past 2 games. So clearly they just do not trust him there. And look, I think part of it too isn't just about Jordan Davis. It's also about the rise of Moro Ojama. Obviously Milton Williams can give you some pass rush juice. I think it's about those players stepping
Thomas
up
Booker
too.
as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I knew that was going to, excuse me, got a bit of a cold, so I apologize again for the voice. But with Jordan Davis, I knew that was going to be a problem, BLG. When I saw the snap counts after the game, I knew. I just said, oh, boy, here we go. And again, it was the game. A, they took out their starters. B, they were never in the 5-man fronts. It was all pass rush because the Giants had, I think, their running backs had 4 rushing yards at halftime. It just wasn't a Jordan Davis game. So I think they're 2 different conversations, right? I think he's doing a great job as a run defender, but he can't do anything else. And is that the value you want from the 13th pick in the draft? Probably not. So I agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
But the other people going, oh, he only played 12 snaps in this particular game. Meaningless, absolutely meaningless because of the way it went and the way they were playing, and the Giants had to throw every down, basically.
Yeah, it does highlight, though, John, the deficiencies of the player, which I think is where you get into the 13th pick conversation.
Well, yeah, that part of it, I agree. But as far as and BLG, you're right. Vic Fangio's not beholden to any 13th over. He's a run defender. I'm going to use him as a run defender. I think that's the way he should be used. He can't rush the passer. So why are you putting him out there? But that's Howie's fault.
Right.
You know, probably should have drafted Kyle Hamilton. That might have worked. But maybe not, though, if they play this scheme. Who knows? But anyway, that part I knew was going to be a problem. And I don't think that indication that, and I don't even know if Cincinnati's going to have Chase Brown. It's the Brown week. Chase Brown, Sidney, twin brothers. They don't have a great running game. But when you do get to a team, if you're playing Baltimore in the Super Bowl, you're going to want Jordan Davis, I would think. Zander can back me up on this. From day one, BLG, I said, this is an esoteric pick. I don't think it's going to work. But I forgot you brought up something interesting. Howie said that.
Yeah.
That he needs to be an impact. Well, why are you drafting him? You know he's not going to be an impactful. You should.
Right.
Yeah. I had forgotten that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I mean, does that highlight that Howie Roseman potentially saw him the wrong way? I mean, right?
I think so.
It does. I mean, in my opinion, if he's saying that, and John, what you say makes a lot of sense, right? That's not his role as a player. I understand that. Okay, then great. Then don't take him 13th overall, or
Yeah. Trade down if you want that. I don't know. But if they think they got a good player, we'll see how it shakes out long term. But I do see that heat being ramped up. Let's go to the offense, BLG. Kellen Moore. I don't know, man. This is such a weird team. Like they're 4-2, and they can't score in the first quarter. There's one team in the NFL that hasn't scored in the fourth quarter, and they're the 4-2 Philadelphia Eagles. That's their best first drive of the season.
Yeah,
against the New York Giants.
It's better than all the other ones combined, yardage wise.
Yeah.
How many yards do they have in that?
They had 17 on this, and they have 12 on all the others.
And 5 other games combined, they didn't have 17 on the first.
Yeah.
Oh my!
They got a first down, the whole 9 yards.
That's brutal.
Progress. They're going in the right direction.
Yeah, a play action play, BLJ under center. They got the first down on.
What? I can't put anything. I mean, is it just it'll get better? Because that seems to be their plan.
Yeah.
Oh, at some point it'll get better. But I think people overrate the scripts and all that stuff. I mean, generally, I had that discussion with Doug Peterson back in the day. A lot of times we're off script by the third play if it turns out to be 3rd and 8 or 3rd and long. So I think that's overrated. A lot of penalties. Saquon slips in the shitty field. Yada, yada, yada. Is it just bad luck?
Then there's an element of that. Maybe just no script at all. Just go into the game
Tempo.
Figure it out.
That? Yeah.
I think, just have Jalen make calls on the line, whatever. Maybe it's worth a try at this point. It's crazy too, and it does matter. Like Nick or whoever can try to downplay it. I mean, it's a big deal from a standpoint, I think, specifically for this team and how they want to play. Ideally, I think they're better from like a front running standpoint when we're talking about, hey, we don't know exactly where the pass game is at. Well, it's really easier to run the ball when you can kind of build a lead and build confidence early on. And if you could actually get off to a great start, like they did often in 2022, and have those leads, and then kind of just basically control the game flow and the game script from there. Like that would be really helpful, you would think, instead of potentially having to pass from behind. And now, obviously, against the Giants, it didn't matter as much, but that was because their offense couldn't do anything at all, and it bought you time to eventually take it over. But against the Bengals this week, they start slow again. I don't think they're recovering from that as easily.
No doubt. BLG, I want to ask you about a sensitive topic that I was ripped for yesterday, and it's maybe I'm making too much of it, but AJ after the game commented on targets, and I had a problem with the comments. I'm like, you just beat a divisional opponent by 25 points, and you're bringing up targets. You got 3,000 yards in 2 years, dude. Like, you're going to get your targets. I thought it was the wrong time for that type of comment, and potentially creates a subconscious pressure on the quarterback and the offensive coordinator to make sure, okay, I got to keep these guys happy. Am I overreacting to the A.J. Brown comments after the game? How do you see them?
No, isn't that what happened last year? It's the conversation on the sideline against the Vikings that we all saw.
Yeah, and also in the NFC divisional game in 22.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's why when we're talking about the feasibility of like just run the ball, it's not that simple. It's not. Yeah. It's like that.
Yeah. As John's pointed out to me many times this week.
Yeah. You need your guys to get their touches, and the offense is better for that too. I mean, AJ, only had 5 targets. 4 of them were first downs. The other was the touchdown. Obviously, incredibly efficient, and he should want the ball. Obviously, he's the star receiver.
Who wants a receiver who doesn't want the ball?
Yeah,
no, I know, but isn't there a time and a place for a comment? Like, he just blew out a divisional opponent by 25 points. Do you have to make that comment right there?
I think he's allowed to do it. If anyone, AJ can do it.
Well, yeah, because he's been productive. But
I think it was flippant. I was there. It was the last question. I think he laughed. He was flippant. I don't think it was that big of a deal, but I get why people bring it up. Yeah, but one of the things as a reporter, and I'm sure BLG's the same way, I love it when people tell the truth. I love Vic. I love AJ. I love Lane. I love Kelsey. I love people who tell the truth. And I feel like when they tell the truth, a bunch of people get really mad sometimes. And I'm like, you just want to hear what you want to hear at that point. He's telling the truth, and it's absolutely 100% true. Devontae Smith is the least diva-like receiver in the history of the world, and if he continues to get 2 targets and 1 catch for -2 yards, he's going to be pissed off. And if your receiver isn't pissed off by that, you shouldn't want that receiver. So I think,
I get that. I love the truth too, but when you're on a team, John, that has to be applied in the right manner. I get it. You're a reporter. You love the truth. That makes complete sense to me. Yeah. But you're your team, man. You're the captain on a team. That was not the right time to make that comment. That would be my takeaway from it.
I think it's always the right time to tell the truth, but that's me personally. I think it's always the right time to tell the truth, and I think it only helps your team by telling the truth.
Even if the truth is because of a self-serving nature that you want to get your targets, I get it. It's a reality. Every receiver in the league wants the ball. I get that, but it is a me first attitude, not a team first.
Well, I didn't in that particular instance. I don't think AJ was talking about himself because he got a decent amount of targets. I thought he was talking about everybody else. But even if he was talking about himself, because he could take it in that direction, no, I still don't see it as a problem because he's the best player on the team. And as BLG pointed out, pretty freaking effective when they threw him the ball. 4 first downs and a touchdown. I don't know. I'd want to double down on that. And we've seen the team without AJ Brown and how they perform. So, and again, to the captaincy, I think one of the most overrated things in the NFL is captaincy. BLG. I don't know about you. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah,
who cares who the captain is? Other than the team votes on it, so it's the guys they want. And I always say, if your quarterback isn't a captain, you got a problem. If you're an NFL team,
sure.
That's the only thing I care about captains. If the quarterback isn't a captain, I'm like, what's going on here? That's it. That's as far as I care about captains. What's your thoughts on captaincy?
I've always thought the C patch looks cool. I like the little patch on the jersey. Because the Eagles didn't do that, obviously with Andy Reid.
Well, yeah, and you got the stars. I didn't even know. Slay had to explain to me.
Yeah, they make it like colored after
you
a
get
certain amount of
more
years.
stars for the years that you're a captain.
One star for every year. And then they make the C gold, like the gold kind of color after 5. You have to get your 5th year. So once you get your 4 stars, then they turn the C patch gold. I mean that's my take.
I just learned that.
Yeah, see, Brandon Graham I think has the gold one on there.
Yes.
You're right, BLG. It does look pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of it for me in captaincy. But people make a big deal out of it. Well, he's a captain. Slay always gets that. He can't go on he's a captain. What does that mean? I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal. But
BLJ, any final thoughts on this team? They're sitting at 4-2, but I tell you what, it doesn't feel like a team that's 4-2. Just where are you overall in this team right now as we move into week 8 of the NFL season?
Yeah, I mean, look, I give them credit for these past 2 wins. The teams are bad, but that doesn't mean you always are guaranteed to win. Yeah. We saw late last year. They also played some bad teams and they couldn't beat them. I'm really interested in this game this week. I have, back when the Bengals were 1-4 in my power rankings that I do each week on bleedinggreennation.com, I still had them ranked at like 14th or something. Like I was not ready to bury them by any means. And in fact, I was looking at their schedule and I was like, I think they're going to win their next 4 games here. And that includes the Eagles game. And that's they're not really good team in that they have their issues, but that is a team I would not take lightly. Joe Burrow has the 3rd best passer rating in the NFL this year. He's 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Trey Hendrickson is an elite pass rusher. He's going up against Fred Johnson this week. That's a big issue. The Bengals haven't won at home yet this year. I think they're 0-3. I just have a hard time believing they're going to go 0-4 at home. I just think
the Eagles have never won there either.
That's right.
That weird. They don't play there a lot, but they've never won there.
Yeah, it's what, like 0-3-1 or 0-4-1.
Yeah.
I think this is I'm going to be very interested. We're going to learn a lot more about the Eagles this week.
I said the same thing.
2 weeks. Yep.
This is the first game where I feel we'll learn something about this team. Good, bad, or indifferent. We'll learn something about this team against the Cincinnati Bengals. At Brandon Gowton on the X platform, make sure you follow BLG there. As he said, Bleeding Green Nation does a tremendous job. Editor-in-chief, get your daily Eagles update. I go there every morning. Can't recommend it enough. Thanks, BLG. Another home run. You're a home run hitter, by the way.
I appreciate
now, BLG's the 330 guy. He's consistent every week.
All right. That's even better.
Good stuff. BLG, thank you, man.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Thanks, bud.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff from BLG there on Birds 365. Johnny Mac, 2 good guests, man. I love our Wednesday guests. They always bring great insight and great opinions on the team. I thought they brought some good ones today. Johnny Mac, couple minutes left on the show. What's on the docket today for the Philadelphia Eagles? And then, by the way, we got to talk about one piece
Everything's on the docket.
I can't believe I missed a piece of news, though, yesterday, John. That's my mistake, Birds 365
Paris
Nation.
Campbell. Yeah, I kept you're talking about the big
I'm talking about Paris Campbell being released.
I meant to bring that up myself, but yeah. I don't even know
Nothing
where to begin with. So
I always try and keep the people informed on what happens, and that's the reason I wanted
big day today. Practice. Everything's going on today. Locker room, Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, everything's going on in Eagles world today. So biggest practice day of the week. They shifted the schedule around. Vic Fangio likes practicing in the afternoon. Now locker room's going to be after practice, so it's a longer day for me. Thanks, Mick. But no, anyway. Yeah, big day for the Eagles.
No doubt. Got a couple super chats before we get out of here today. Appreciate Caleb and James for dropping in some supers. Caleb Brandon says, John acting like we want them to run the ball down 50. Of course, circumstance matters. Problem is they don't run the ball when best for offense early.
Well, then they'll bring up the dumb stats. Over there, 14-1 when they run the ball. It's common sense is what I'm saying. So don't bring stupid shit like that up, and I won't say it. Obviously, when you're ahead late, and I say this I feel like I say this every stinking pregame show. Somebody asked me, what do you think the run-pass ratio is going to be? And I'm freaking undefeated. And I'm not undefeated because I'm Nostradamus. When you're winning, you run it at the end of the game. When you're losing, you throw it. And that affects the run-pass ratio. So stop bringing it up, and then I won't bring it up.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Good response to Caleb. Caleb, we appreciate you, brother. He dropped in one more. He said the best argument is true. Number 11 and number 6 need the ball. No doubt about that one, Caleb.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, definitely. James Carver drops in $20. James, thank you for the super chat, my man. We appreciate your support as always. He said, and I think he had a spell check in this. It's just like J-Max says, I think it was show him the score and he'll tell you the run stats. JD is not in any way a bust, and he is a run stopper, nose tackle, shade defensive tackle. He was also the first. He was also the first sack this year. Stop it. He'll be here for a long time, and just like Cox. James, I think there's some truth in what you're saying, man, but I don't know if Howie's looking at this guy like
BLG,
a guy wants to pay
and he
$20
did,
million.
as BLG pointed out correctly so, and he reminded me, Howie did say that he needs to be impactful on third downs. He's not even a third down player at this point, nor should he be. And he's a great run stopper, as James says. But the conversation isn't, is he a valuable player? Yes. Is he worthy of the 13th overall pick? According by Howie's own definition, probably no. So that, to me, the second question is valid. The first question is not. He's a very important part. And I knew the snap counts were going to be a big deal against, and you know, same thing I say about the run pass. For whatever reason, people look at that end of game box score and they just make declarations without thinking. Why is he playing 12 snaps? Well, they're ahead 25. They benched the starters in the fourth quarter. They were always in throwing the football. They were barely in run defense. So his role wasn't needed as much. All those things completed to the perfect storm and ended up 12 reps. When you have a normal game, one score game, he will be back up to his normal playing time. But he's not at this stage a 3-down player. And he's probably never going to be a 3-down player.
So how does that translate to, you know, the Howie comments? Because look, I get what you're saying, and I appreciate James's point as well. It makes sense why he wouldn't have played a lot. But that does also highlight, okay, you spent a 13th pick. The contract, it's kind of a contract year because Howie typically doesn't like to just pick up the 5th-year option at the last second on players. What's Howie going to do? You know what I mean? I don't know. I think that question is still fair, while I also understand the context of why he didn't play a lot this week.
Well, and yeah, with that conversation, it's worth having from the standpoint of, you know, is Howie's what BLJ said, like with Vic Fangio, and this is what I'm talking about, the truthfulness. Like, I know he's telling the truth. With Howie, he might be trying to get through a press conference, and that might not be his real assessment. If it was his real assessment that he's going to be a 3-down player, then he's got to be labeled as a disappointment. He's not going to be a 3-down player. Did Howie believe that? I don't necessarily believe that. I think Howie knew what he was, but he did say that. But BLG is not wrong. He did say that.
Yeah, which I think does bring up an interesting question about Jordan Davis.
And that's why you should always tell the truth.
Yeah, no, but I don't have a problem with telling the truth. But John, you got to understand that there's a time and place for everything.
There's unintended consequences to everything as well. And
Right.
when you don't tell the truth and you're creating unrealistic expectations around the fan base, it's going to come around 180 and hit you in the ass at some point. And I think that's what's going on with Howie and Jordan Davis, because he wasn't honest at the forefront of it. That this is Haloti Nada. This is Beta Bea. This is a run stopper. Now,
don't even say it. Don't even say the guy that everybody wants him, Dexter Lawrence.
Oh, well,
my God.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
James Carver, I love you, pal, but I cannot agree with you that he was saying earlier in the chat that, Jordan is close to Dexter's level. I don't see that, John.
No. Well, Dexter's playing. If Dexter was on a good team, he'd be probably leading the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. But he plays on a bad team.
He's got 9 sacks as a nose tackle. I mean, holy crap. That dude is an absolute beast. Johnny Mac, great show today, man. We're out of time. I thought our 2 guests were tremendous today, as they always are. Good stuff, John. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. All right, man?
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody on the show. Hit that like button on your way out. And by the way, just one question I want to answer before I get out of here. Joe says, will you sell the shirts you're wearing? Joe, I'm going to add them to the shop as soon. I just wanted to get a sample in and see
when
if
am I getting the shirts?
Yeah, Johnny Mac is waiting on his care package. John, I'll get you one. Don't worry. I got to talk to you about that after the show. I'll get you a whole new set of polos and stuff for the show. So appreciate it, Joe. Go check out the JAKIB merch, everybody, at jakibsports.com. Go check it out. Appreciate everybody being here. Hit that like button on the way out. Johnny Mac, great show. Catch everybody tomorrow on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.